everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly software workshop. We're going to go ahead and wait about another minute here or two to allow the attendee list to slow down. So just hang tight here for about a minute or so, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Also, just as a general housekeeping, for those of you who haven't been here to the weekly software workshop, this workshop is a very informal setting. So you probably have seen a little pop-up that says you were allowed to talk by the host. So with these webinars being a more laid-back, conversational type webinar, we make it so that you guys can unmute yourselves and talk when you have questions. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as we go. If you are, uncomfortable with unmuting and asking, then go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A or in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on those as well as we get going here. But with that in mind, welcome to this week's weekly software workshop. My name is Mason Wells. For those of you who are not aware or have not been here before, I'm the manager of customer success. So my job is to make you all successful while using the software and getting everything out of your subscription as humanly possible. So with that in mind, we started these weekly software workshops last year in order to give you guys a little bit bite-sized pieces of the software over time that we go through and use and show you how it can be used in your operation, as well as give you opportunities to ask questions. So we do these every week, and they're little bite-sized pieces of the software. And just because we're going over one thing today in the software does not mean that you can't ask questions about other parts of software. So if you have questions as we go, please unmute yourself and ask. Don't feel like you can't interrupt me. I'm absolutely, I enjoy people interrupting me so I can answer questions. And then also, if there are other parts of the software that we're not addressing today that you have a dying question you want to ask, go ahead and ask it. We're not just strictly sticking to one part of the software, okay? So if you want to know more about something else in here, just let us know. Today, we're going to go over ways to analyze your WSW in the Business Operations Support System. For those of you who don't know, we like to make things into acronyms here at eTruckBiz. So our Business Operations Support System, we will affectionately call it the BOSS system. So that is, if you hear me call it that, that's what that acronym is for. And the next couple of weeks, we're going to go over a couple of different things. We're going to go over managing your safety programs next week. That's a really important thing to make sure that your drivers are getting those ongoing safety training lessons to keep you compliant with FedEx and your indemnity. And then the week after that, we're going to go over the maintenance system. So generating those MMRs in our system, it shaves hours off of you and your BC's time getting those maintenance reports, those MMRs ready for the end of the month. And then later on this month, we're going to go over utilizing op metrics in the BOSS system. And then we added this recently, for those of you who were here a couple weeks ago, we do now a monthly recap. So for those of you who have BCs that are unable to attend every week, there is every month, usually towards the end of the month, we do a monthly recap of everything we already went over for the week. So if they are unable to make it throughout the week, throughout the month, they can come to just the one and pretty much get all of their information that they need. But again, we go through a bunch of different things on all of these webinars, so they may have missed something earlier on in the month. But definitely that monthly recap is extremely important, especially for the BCs that cannot attend at all times. And then this is my contact info. I'll pull this up at the end as well. If you have questions, comments, suggestions for the software, you want to shoot the breeze, here's my contact information. But we'll go ahead and get started. So this is the login to the BOSS system. We're going to go ahead and log in here. And we're going to take you to the WSW part of the system. So once a week, those WSWs get released from FedEx, and then they get put into our system. So that usually happens on a Saturday because that's when your WSWs are generated and released. Well, Friday, really, really late Friday night, Saturday during the day. So it does take us about a day to get those generated into here. So about Saturday evening, you'll start to see these WSWs come out and show up in our system. The way you would know that this WSW information in this analysis exists and is ready to be seen for last week, the way you would see that and know is when you get this email. So this email is your weekly driver productivity email that gets sent to you and the list of people that are in your email preferences to receive this. So you can have yourself as an owner receive it. You can also have your BCs. You can add their emails in there and they can receive it as well. It's something that's really great to have sent to your BCs to go over the productivity for your drivers. So just as a quick overview of the WSW analysis email, what this does is it breaks down your drivers in mileage bands. So these, you see these bolded numbers right here. These are for over the entire country, all of our customers. We take everybody's information and we average it out in these mileage bands. So you can compare how your drivers are doing versus the other drivers in the country who are driving the same amount of miles. Okay, because we have a lot of people that ask, like, well, compared to everybody else, how are my drivers doing? This is a great way of doing that. So between 0 and 50 miles, these drivers here for this particular contractor, this is their information on average for last week, for the week of 120 to 126. This is a great way of analyzing whether or not you can put more packages or more stops onto that particular driver. It does, one of the biggest things that's on here is showing you your on-duty versus your on-road hours. And as long as your drivers are going into those scanners and putting in those numbers correctly, this is going to tell you how long they're on the road delivering packages. So on average, I believe the standard is 8 hours on road is what FedEx is at the moment, that they negotiate your contracts and they expect that the drivers, that's how long they should be on the road. So we've got some drivers in here that are clearly under 8 hours on road. And then you also see the difference. They're on road for 5.5 hours, but they're on duty for 7. So what are they doing for that extra hour and a half? And for some of you, it may be stem miles. They might be driving a lot of mileage, but for these particular people, they're only driving 50 miles max a day on average. So I could see that down here, that type of gap when you get into these high mileage areas, but up here you might not have that much stem. In this particular situation too, you might have some drivers that you don't have package handlers, so they're kind of package handling before they get into the truck. But either way, seeing these numbers and knowing, oh, they have about an hour and a half of stem to either get into where they're going, or they're coming in and they're putting the packages in the trucks. It's better to see it and know what the reasoning is behind the differential here, than not know it at all. So again, this is what their ILS, stops per on-road hours. So anytime you see the STORH, that is an acronym for stops per on-road hour. So that means how many stops they're completing an hour while they're on the road. And then again, you all probably, I hope at this point, know stops, packages per stop, miles, all of that fun stuff there as well. As you start going down through here, it is really beneficial to go in, and when you start seeing people that are maybe on the road for 5 hours. So let's look at this guy right here. Just highlighting it so you guys all can see it. So this particular driver for 75 to 100 miles is doing well on their ILS, but their stops per on-road hour on average compared to everybody else is lower, and they're doing less stops, less packages per stop. They're doing a little bit more miles, but they're still doing less than everybody else in this mileage band, and they're only on the road for about 5 hours a day. So that would be one of those situations where if I were the manager or the owner, I would look into why we're not putting more on their trucks. And there could be very good reasons for that. I'm not saying that there aren't good reasons for that type of thing, but this is a great way to look at these numbers for last week and see where you might be able to add, or might be able to really look at some of those drivers that you know are doing really well, but just double check their numbers. Okay. Any questions on the weekly WSW analysis email that comes out to you guys? Okay, and if you do, like I said, you can put them in the chat, Q&A, unmute yourself and ask. All of those are acceptable ways of asking questions. I'm gonna make this a little less. So this, when you get into the WSW analysis, this is going to show you your weekly stops per on-road hour. This particular contractor has been with us for a very, very long time. So they are going to show you, it's going to show you last year what their stops per on-road hour were, and also comparing it to this year. So he does have a little bit of a lower stops per on-road hour comparative to last year for the last couple of weeks. And you can filter this so you can see what dates you want to see. And then you can also look at your packages in comparison from last year to this year. And you can also look at your stops as well. This is just a really good way of looking very quickly at some information to kind of see where you are compared to where you were last year. And then we'll go ahead and get into this. So you've got two different ways of analyzing your WSW information. You've got operational activity and driver activity. Operational is obviously your entire operation. When you get in here, there are going to be some things that have changed for those of you who've been, utilizing the system for a while. This main thing up here, this little box up here, shows you the averages for all your drivers for this particular filter that you have on. Okay, so you're going to see January 1 to February 1, and you're going to see all drivers, all managers, all CSAs. What that means is if you go in here and you change this filter, if you decide you want to look at a particular driver, or you want to see just the drivers that are assigned to one manager, that's also a good way of letting your managers manage only their people. So if they get in here and they want to see just their drivers, they can choose their own name and see only the drivers that they're in charge of, the information for just their drivers. And then you can also, if you have multiple CSAs, this is also really a great way to filter out the extra CSA. So you're only looking at one set of numbers for one and one set of numbers for another. This particular contractor has 2 P&D and 1 line haul. In line haul, they don't have WSWs. So it would just be these two. So we'll just go ahead and click the one. And when you do that, if you notice down here, there were like 2 Fridays, 2 Thursdays, 2 Wednesdays. That's because we took out the 1 CSA. If you did have multiple CSAs and you're looking at all of them, right next to the day, it will tell you what CSA you're looking at. Okay, so if you do want to keep them in here all together, you can. I like to separate them out because it makes it a little easier to read. But to each their own. And as you can see, when I change that filter, it's going to show you up here what filter you have on. So anytime you're curious, like what information you're looking at, this is where you're going to see where that filter is. Okay, so if you notice here, we're looking at this particular CSA. For this particular CSA for this month, their ILS is 100%, so that's really great. Delivery stops, pickup stops, total stops, delivery packages, as you can see, very self-explanatory. They're looking at hours per driver. Their stops per on-road hours, pretty good. They've increased that over the last couple of months, over the course of the last couple of months. It's going to show you your average on duty, your average on road, and the time difference between those two. So they're averaging about 3.17 hours between their on duty and on road. I know this particular contractor, I think they have their own location that they do their own sorting and stuff. So they might have some of those drivers, like I said, doing, putting their packages in their own trucks. So that might be that time difference there. Once you get down here, there's a lot of different ways to interact with this information, okay? So there are ways to sort this. So if you want to see, let's say, your highest day of delivery stops, you would click that, and it's going to show you, it's going to sort everything by, well, each week, it's going to sort each week and show you which day was the highest number of delivery stops. So this particular day, it was a Wednesday. This particular week, it was a Thursday, and this one, it was a Monday. So you can see, you can sort by that. You can also sort by miles. So you can say what days were my highest mileage days for those particular weeks as well. And any of these up here that you wanna sort by. So you can sort those columns that way. We added that as a way of being able to quickly view this information for all of your days that you worked in that particular week. And also something that's really big about this particular filter, this CSA, he doesn't have as many drivers working, but the number of employees is also important. So if you're trying to figure out how many employees you had working on each day, this is really important when you're working on your DRO. When you're trying to figure out how many employees you're going to need to schedule moving forward, okay? And with that, in the filter, there are these lovely blue check boxes. These are, if you uncheck them, so let's say we're going to just look at Mondays. If you uncheck all of the days except for Monday and you click search, it's just going to show you Mondays. This is really great for working in that DRO and figuring out what plan you need to work on or use in the next day or next couple of Mondays. Our biggest thing is using your historical data to inform how you do things in the future. So knowing what your historical data was for the last couple of Mondays is really going to help you figure out, okay, how many drivers have I run the last 2-3 Mondays? It's between 4 and 5, and how many stops I've between, you know, his are kind of all over the place, but they've also had weather. So this particular time of the year is kind of hard for that, but they've had anywhere from 400 to 800, which is a big span. You can also go in here and go back a couple of weeks and show some more dates, so you can actually see their average, like, you know, your employees 5, 4, 5, 4. There's anywhere between 5 and 4, and they're looking at, you know, the same numbers, very, very similar numbers. This particular week, he had lots and lots of weather. He's out in Kansas, so he had lots of weather that particular week. But as you can see, you can go through and look at each day without looking at all those extra days that are included. I don't know about how many of you, if you're this way, but for me, when I've got a whole week's worth of data and I'm trying to compare last week to this week, and I've got all those days in there, and I really just want to look at Mondays, that's all I want to look at. I don't want to have all those extra days in there, accidentally looking at the wrong number. So using that filter to choose whatever particular day you're wanting to look at is really a great way of doing it. And again, like I said, we can look at his other CSA because he's got more drivers in that one. You can see he's got 20, 21, about 20 is where he's hitting last couple of weeks for that operation on Tuesdays. Now, you can also, when you're looking at, let's say it's the whole week, you can also, if you're like scrolling through and you're seeing all these dates, but you don't really want to see every single week that's in this view, you can, right next to week ending here, there's a little arrow, you can minimize these drop downs, okay? So I'm just doing all of them because I can, but as you go, you can scroll down through here and close up ones you don't want to particularly look at this moment, and just open up and close certain ones you want to open. So there's a lot of different ways to interact now with the WSW analysis that didn't exist before. Our goal here was to give you guys as many options as possible to interact with this information to get out of it what you need. So if you're not seeing a way that you would like to interact with this information, please let us know. So that way we can get you the tool, we can make the tool the way you need it to work for your operation as well. It's very versatile. There's lots of ways to interact. So As you get going in here, there's lots of different things to click around in. One of the last things in the operational activity that you can do in here is you can actually click on one of these as well, and it's going to pull up your operation for that particular day, and it's going to show you all your drivers. It's going to show you what everybody did down here on the bottom, but it's also going to show you, it starts with stops, and you can see delivery stops versus pickups. So anything in black is going to be pickup stops, and anything in red are delivery. And then you can also switch over to packages, miles, so see what everybody drove that day. Again, you can see their time. This is where you can see the difference between on duty, on road, and then that time difference. So the top is the on duty, the bottom line is on road, and the shaded area in between is the time difference. So anytime you hover over any of these, that's what you're going to see. Then you can also view their ILS for that day as well. And then, like I said, you can see all of their information down here on the bottom as well. You can see the totals for the whole company and as well as the averages for the whole company. And anytime you see export CSV, you can pull this out in an Excel file. So it's going to be able to be pulled out, and you can do whatever you would like to do with it in Excel file as well. Any questions about the operational activity area here? I know it's a lot of information, so if you've got a question about does it do this, does it do that, if you think you might have missed something in here, any questions about the operational activity? Okay, and like I said before, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. We're going to go back, and my favorite part of the WSW analysis is driver activity. It has the same, very similar filters, very similar. You can minimize these here. You can filter out specific dates. You can, again, do contracts by assigned manager and by CSA. The assigned manager one is very important in this particular part of the software, because if you're wanting your managers to look at their drivers and how their drivers that they manage are doing, filtering out people that are not their drivers is very beneficial. But one of the nice things about this part of the software is that this shows you this week ending date with all of your drivers individually. So let's go ahead and look at somebody. Look at this one. So if you click on one, it's going to tell you all the days that they worked for that particular week. And it's going to show you the same types of charts that we saw in the operational activity, but it's not for the whole operation. It's just for this particular driver for that week. So this was last week. Shows you their stops, their packages, how many miles they drove, their time. Again, this is their on duty, on road, and the time difference in between. And then their ILS for the entire week. What's really great about this part of the tool, when you're going through all your drivers and you're analyzing, you know, how well is this driver doing? Do I need to potentially work on getting them more stops on their route? What have you? Any type of thing that would be analyzing that driver and giving them feedback or increasing anything, all of the above. You would want to use this tool for that, because you can go in here week by week. Let's say we want to go just filter out a manager. I'm pretty sure he's got some people under him. Yeah, so if you can see here, some of those drivers got filtered out. So let's go ahead and open somebody. And what you're going to see is you're going to see all of their statistics, all of their data for the entire week. And you're going to see, like we showed before, delivery stops, pickup stops, all of their information. One of the great things that I love about this tool is when you're going through here and you're analyzing someone's data, this stops per on-road hour part is something that we really hound on as far as being a really good metric to determine whether or not your drivers are hitting the correct productivity. Okay, so everybody talks about, are your drivers being productive? Are they making you enough money? did you send them out with enough stuff on their truck? Well, there's only so many stops a driver or a route can handle an hour. So over time, you start to know, like, okay, this particular route with this many stops, it can be done at about this time, and it can have about this many stops on it. The drivers are kind of that way too. So some drivers can do more stops than others in an hour, depending on their size of their route, miles, what have you. One story that I like to tell about this particular part of the software is that I had somebody get in here, and he was, has my sense of humor, so I absolutely loved it. He was picking on drivers, right? He's getting in here and he's going, this driver is no good. They give me all types of excuses. I want to look at their numbers. And we get in there and he starts to kind of go, oh, okay, well, their numbers aren't that bad. Then we start going around, and he picks out a driver that he's sitting here and he's saying, man, this is my number one, my go-to. They always come into work. They're always on time. They're always getting their route done, and they're even helping other people. I want to see their numbers. And I said, okay, we'll go ahead and open it up, and we'll go look at their numbers. So we open it up and we get in here. And he starts looking around. He's like, yeah, look at those numbers. These are the greatest. This is the best. And then all of a sudden he goes, well, I'll be. And let me just tell you, for those of you who are aware, that was probably not the language that he used at that moment. There were some more expletives. And I, at that moment, start thinking, what did I do? What is wrong? That's immediately where I'm going. And he's like, that son of a gun. And I start asking him, I said, well, what are you looking at? He's like, I'm looking at my stops per on-road hour. This particular driver, his go-to man, his number one, was doing about 10 stops an hour. You start going down through here, and his stops per on-road hour were pretty much the same throughout the week. And he said that particular driver is usually on the same route every day, and he gives him no problems whatsoever, right? He gets down to Friday, and he starts seeing that on Friday, he's doing 20 stops per hour. And he looks over at his time difference and is on road, and he's at like 5 hours on road instead of usually it's like 8. And he starts to realize that driver is getting out early on Fridays on purpose. He's doing his job real nice and smooth throughout the week, and then Friday he's getting his packages off the truck as fast as he can and going home. Needless to say, I was really glad that it was not something that I had done. However, I would not have wanted to be the driver on the other end of that conversation, because he immediately wanted to get off and go talk to the driver. But he didn't know that. He thought that that driver was his go-to and his number one, and he never had any issues with that driver. And that is a great thing to have with drivers, because as we all know, they can be temperamental and, lots of complaining. And then when you get some that are not, you tend to be like, I love them, they're the greatest. And sometimes we might overlook something that we don't necessarily see because they're just such a great driver. When you start looking at the numbers separately from really liking that the driver is an easy person to deal with, you start to see some things potentially that you're like, that's not the greatest. So yeah, going from 10 stops per on-road hour to 20 on the same route may not have been something that contractor might have noticed otherwise, had he not looked at this tool. So needless to say, after that, we started paying attention to their stops per on-road hour and their numbers in here. But I really like that story because it really shows how looking at your numbers and analyzing everything, sometimes it can be difficult to do, because I can tell you right now, I hate looking at numbers. I don't like lines, small lines, charts, not my fan. I'm a outdoors person. I don't like looking at these little lines, but when you get in here and you're looking at the numbers, they speak for themselves. So that's why I really like the driver activity, and I really like being able to keep people and hold people accountable for what they actually are doing. So this is a really great tool for that. Do we have any questions about the driver activity part of this part of the software, or honestly, any part of the WSW analysis at all? Any questions? I'm shocked, Andy, that you have no questions.
No. I just couldn't get to unmute quickly enough. So
that's what it was.
So the question I have is, we have had some back and forth with the validity relative to WSW, and I wanted to confirm, does that have to do with the names being identical? Like we have a few old timers that came from, been with the business a long time, that all their names are in small letters. There's not even a capital in the whole thing. So is that a kind of thing where it's very important to, to look at that stuff?
Yes. I'm
Okay.
glad you brought that up because that's something I forgot to mention.
Oh,
So
cool.
something
Thank
that
you.
is a really big deal. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Something that is a really, really big deal is making sure, and I'm trying to pull one up here, so just bear with me while I'm talking in circles. Making sure that your name, the name on their WSW, and the what up here? There we go. Download. Changes in main and leave. Okay. I'm downloading a WSW so I can show you what I mean. One of the big things about our software is there's only so many ways to match up the driver that's coming out of the FedEx system with the driver that's showing up in your system. So there's two ways that we do that. One is their FedEx ID. And in some cases, the FedEx ID will show up just fine. And it's usually, we use that for like the API, the FedEx API. So for our Optics app, it goes off of their FedEx ID. In the API, they show their FedEx ID. We can compare the two. We know who it is. Now the WSW is a bit of an old horse. They have done the WSW for a very long time. And that particular report that comes out of FedEx has been around so long that they don't put their FedEx IDs on there. They put they call it their name on WSW. It is all the way that they put you've seen it, the way that they put their names on this thing are interesting, to say the least. So you've got, some people have a middle initial. Some people have their full middle name. Some people have junior. Some people have, I mean, I've seen, there you go, there's 4 names. So
And it doesn't sort it in order
is,
either. Oh, sorry.
it doesn't sort it in
Notice, it won't do alphabetical order on some people.
So for this particular contractor, his truck numbers are easy to find. I do payroll for somebody that they're for a couple people, and there's trucks in here. You get in here, and those aren't even truck numbers. I'm like, what is that number? Where did that come from? Why does that look like that? The way that this, I can tell you right now, the R&D and the development that has had to go into reading this thing, so that way this comes out. The boss system shows it has taken a long time, but we did get it there and it does work. The only thing is, Andy, what you're talking about is making sure that that name that shows up on that WSW is showing up in here. So if you've got some discrepancies, one of the big things is, one of the ways you'll really know, we tried to add in like dependencies to kind of make sure you would know when somebody's information's not showing up. There is, it says right down here, if there's a dash is shown for the driver, the system didn't match anyone or multiple drivers from the WSW in our system. So if you start seeing these little dashes, that can tell you. So for him, he's got people pretty much lined up. But if you see some dashes, that tells us that something's not matching up. Now, if you don't see a dash and somebody's not matching up, you may want to double check it. So like we've got people that like their names will change because they get married. And so like in your system, you'll put them as a certain name, but on the FedEx system, it'll still have their married name.
Well, you know, one of the things,
you go to change their WSW name and it's like,
yeah, I mean, one of the issues that we've also had is that, and I think Becky's on, she could validate this, but the problem is when you look at their name in FedEx, it'll have a comma, like you see on here, like the last one about Hummel, comma, Andrew, Jason. So you see how it looks like Hummel, comma, there's no space between Hummel and Andrew? Down here to the right, go all the way down to the bottom.
Yep, right here.
There's no space between the comma. There are times where you'll see on FedEx where it'll be Hummel, comma, space, Andrew. So I assume the space matters, right? Because that's another character.
It does.
Okay.
It's another character.
And it's not easy to see on FedEx's report. It's not easy to see.
Yeah, so I was going to show you. So we've got Michael Gaston. Okay, so his name on WSW, if I can get this to cooperate with me. So his right here is Gaston Michael, right? His is probably not showing up properly for him because it says Michael Dean.
Right.
So in this particular situation, what I would do is I would go in here, gonna close all that out. I'm gonna go in here and I'm going to say, all right, I'm gonna copy and I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna put that in there. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that comma out. That's it.
Right.
And click save. It is so much easier to copy and paste that from FedEx than it is to try to type it in. Because like you just said, if there's an extra space in there, it's considered an extra character.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, okay. Oh, that's much better because then we won't screw it up, right?
Game changer. Exactly.
Oh,
Game changer.
Okay. I can't speak for our guys, but I think we might not know that. I'm not positive, but I think we might not know that. So that's great.
Yeah,
because I was going to
copying and pasting it in is 10 times easier.
Yeah, and what, just because the report's there, the other report with the FedEx WSW or DSW, depending which one you had up, am I correct when there's gray? Is that because somebody used a helper scanner?
Typically it does. Now,
okay.
Usually if it's a helper, there's going to be another name in here. Like, right. So we had to believe this has been a whole thing. So, okay. Let's go up here. So you've got all these extra lines. You've got Jackson, Megan Jackson, right? So you've got all these extra lines. It is because they either switched their scanner in the middle of the whole thing or what have you. But here's FedEx's infinite wisdom. You ready for an explanation as to what we had to do for development? So if you look at these, of course. This has been real fun. So this is all one person. When this is a helper, it's a little bit more like, it makes you understand. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense that it was a helper, so they had their own scanner and whatnot. This could have been anything. They could have grabbed a helper scanner and logged into themselves. They could have switched scanners because one died. I mean, the list goes on. Either way, this part is the preload data, right? But when you get into down here, and this is basically, these lines are just this broken down. But,
right.
But you get into this down here. Here's the best part. See these? How these are, you've got grayed out here, but you've got these random numbers.
Well, that you notice they also don't match columns either.
No, that's what I was just about to say. So this right here says next available on duty.
Yeah.
It should have times. These, technically speaking, are in the wrong column.
Yeah, we found the wrong column, and there's a lot of fishy stuff, in that regard. So yeah.
And that is one of those things we went in and they figured out how to go in and code our processor so it processes these things and shifts everything over to the right column, and it moves everything over so that everything's correct in here, and that it captures those weird drop downs and all of that. And what's crazy is if you go into my GroundBiz and you look at this WSW not as an Excel, and you just open it up, these grayed lines are going to be little black plus buttons, and you have to click them to open them up to see what's under there. It's the weirdest. I mean, I don't know why it's done that way, but this right here was one of
legacy
the hardest
stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it's legacy old stuff, but this right here was one of the hardest things I've ever seen them have to do, was figuring out how to get to shift those over. And anytime they change these reports, our entire system has to be updated, because if they move a character over or they move a column, oh man. But in our system, these are correct. So yes, anytime you see these shifted over in here, we did make them correct in here. So when you go in to the WSW and you go to look at the operational activity and you're looking at these on duty and on road, those have been shifted over and they've been corrected.
Right.
But yeah, that name is, you get into these L's And you get into these. I mean, I've seen some people with like little characters and stuff that you're like, what does that even mean? It's not even like junior. It's just something like a random character. And you're like, I don't even know what that means. But you have to put it in there because that's what it shows on here. It has to be exactly what's in here goes in our system, just without a comma. You replace the space, the comma with a space,
Got
and
it.
be done.
Yeah, because
Yep.
I thought that was something I remembered from the beginning. I think Becky's cleaned up a lot of it. She's on this Zoom. She likes to talk more than I do, and maybe not in public, so she hasn't jumped in on this. But I know that she's been working hard to make sure that we got it, that we have it right.
Gotcha. Yeah, and copying and pasting it in is totally acceptable. I would actually recommend it. It's
by the way, I'm sure you know this. If you go all the way to the bottom of that, Mace, if you go all the way to the bottom, those don't line up either. The very bottom.
No, they don't line up. Yeah.
None of that lines up, which is just utter stupidity. No. I mean, and that sounds obnoxious. I don't mean to sound that way. It's just, I don't understand is what I should say. So I shouldn't have said that. But I just don't understand why to not have it line up. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you go to start calculating it, you're like, why those numbers are not correct? Like,
especially when you're a new contractor.
Column.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a new contractor, you're like, you're just figuring these things out on your own.
Yep, it's real fun.
No, this is good.
That's why you guys have. That's why you have us.
It is. There's not even a doubt.
That's why you get in here and you click on this.
Yes. There is no doubt.
That's why we did all this, because when I first saw one of those WSWs, because I originally started at eTruckBiz as a data entry person, and I remember opening up some of these files to start like kind of figuring out why something was not working or whatever, and I was like, why are all these things have shifted over, and why is that sitting over here in the corner, and what are with these drop downs? Ooh.
Yeah, no, not even a question.
But yeah, everything that is in here that is shifted around and incorrect has been adjusted and fixed in ours. But yes, thank you for bringing that up. These have to be accurate. So if you're seeing something weird or somebody's stuff's not coming up correctly, it is more than likely a problem with that name on WSW showing up in our system over here. So you go to the driver, open them up, and that name on WSW. And usually it's last name, comma, first name. Sometimes I've even seen it on the WSW where it's first name, last name. I'm like, what did you do? What?
Yeah, we have two that just come to mind, and they're both, one is capitals with small, and the other is just all small. Mm-hmm. And the capital small does not come out in the correct order, although it's close, as stupid as that sounds. It's not in the right place. And the one with all small letters comes out at the bottom of every FedEx.
I've never seen. Yep, can't explain any of it, but it's just gotta be. It just has to be copy and paste that buddy in there, because then that'll be correct.
And I suspect that's not something we can send a note to somebody at FedEx and say, "Hey, can you change this?"
We have tried.
Okay.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, I can't say we tried.
But that ship goes slowly.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've asked them to update that and fix those, and it's not high on the priority list, I don't believe.
No. I'm sure it's not.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions? Any other part of the software that you guys want to see, or any other questions about anything else that's in here that we did not go over today? As I am prepared. I like questions that I can answer.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing that you and I prepare these beforehand, so everybody thinks that it's on the fly, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the staged questions are excellent.
Yes,
I like
exactly.
It. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Dawn or Ed or Elena? I know, Elena, you've been on here a couple of weeks. I didn't know if you had any questions either. If not, we will go ahead and I will show you my spreadsheet, my thing here, and we can show you this is what we're going to go over the next couple of weeks. Safety is important, but for those of you who are not necessarily using our MMR generation, that is a game changer for those of you who are, I met somebody yesterday that's still filling out those by hand. So if you're doing that, please show up a couple weeks from now, because I'd like to show you how you don't have to even sign them anymore. You can just pull them out and email them where they got to go. Those are really great for generating the MMRs, but then also when you're putting all of the maintenance records into our system, you can analyze how much you're spending on each truck. So it's a really great way of auditing how much money you're really dumping into each one of these trucks, and if it might be a time to start thinking about, you know, phasing out one to bring in something new. Okay, so that maintenance record area is a really big deal. And then the op metrics is a great tool as well, as far as looking at your historical volume. It's as accurate as literally 10 o'clock that night the information gets put in there for today. So it's great to use for the RO, great to use for just looking at your operation as a whole and how much money each truck is operating on. And then again, like I said, at the end of the month, we'll recap it all and check it all over and make sure we didn't miss anything on any of those other topics. Okay. If I don't see any of you the rest of the week, have a great rest of that week and a great weekend, and we will see you next week for our going over the safety lessons. Everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, ma'am. You too.
Thank you.